I was microwaving lasagna when she knocked. That's where it starts. Not a storm. Not a car crash. Not some grand cinematic explosion. Just a knock, 3 short raps on the cheap wooden door of my 3rd floor walk-up in Dayton, Ohio. Tuesday night. March. Still cold. I was wearing the same gray hoodie I'd worn 3 days in a row, standing barefoot on cracked linoleum, watching cheese bubble in a glass dish. It was 7:36 p.m. I remember because the local news had just cut to commercial and I'd already half decided to call it a night. I didn't expect a knock. I didn't get knocks. Not anymore. My life had become a series of autopilot loops. Wake up, coffee, office, emails, lunch alone, more emails, drive through dinner, TV, sleep. Repeat. You could take a photo of me on any given day and timestamp it by the food wrapper in my hand. I didn't live, not really. I functioned. Like a vending machine. Reliable. Predictable. Empty on the inside. So when I opened the door and saw her, my ex-wife, Liz, I thought maybe I was hallucinating. She hadn't spoken to me in over a year. Not since the divorce papers went through and she moved 2 states away. She looked tired. Raindamp hair stuck to her cheek. No coat. Just a hoodie and jeans. And something in her eyes that made my stomach twist. She didn't ask if she could come in. She just said, "It's about Nate. Our son." The lasagna beeped behind me, but it might as well have been a siren. We hadn't spoken about Nate in months. Not since the last court hearing. He was 15. Angry. Distant. He'd stopped replying to my messages after I missed his birthday. I told myself he'd understand one day. That he'd come around. He didn't. What about him? I asked. My voice sounded distant to me. Liz stepped in without waiting for an invite. Sat down at the table. She looked smaller than I remembered. Like something in her had caved inward. He got into a fight. At school. They're talking expulsion. I sat across from her. "That's not why you're here," I said. She looked at me for a long time. And then she finally said it. "He's not okay, Marty. He talks about not wanting to be here. He writes things. Dark things. And I don't know how to reach him anymore. He won't talk to me. But he asked about you." She slid something across the table. A sheet of paper. Torn from a notebook. My name written on it in block letters, circled 3 times. He wanted me. Not the version of me he last saw, late, distracted, half alive, but me. The father he remembered from before I disappeared into deadlines and excuses. That paper broke something in me. Something that had been dead quiet for years suddenly roared awake. I left the lasagna. Left the news. Packed a bag that night. No plan. Just a car and the road and one thought. This was the knock I'd been waiting for. Not from fate. Not from God. But from the life I'd almost missed. I drove through the night. Didn't stop for gas until the light had been on for 20 minutes. Didn't eat. Didn't turn on the radio. Just me, headlights, and the low hum of Ohio rolling into Indiana. My fingers gripped the wheel like it was the only thing keeping me on the planet. I hadn't seen Nate in 8 months. Not since that last court day when he didn't look up at me once. Not when I spoke. Not even when I said goodbye. I remember the judge asking if I had anything to say before custody was finalized. I said I hoped he'd understand someday. That I loved him. It felt like I was tossing a note into a tornado. No idea where it landed. By the time I pulled up to Liz's house, 4:42 a.m., the sky was steel gray, the color of bad news. I didn't text. I didn't knock. I just sat there in the driveway, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the front door, asking myself the one question I hadn't been brave enough to say out loud. What if I already lost him? 20 minutes passed. Then the porch light flicked on. Liz opened the door in sweats, hair tied up, mug in her hand. She didn't look surprised to see me. Just tired. "He's awake," she said. "Barely slept last night." I stepped inside. It smelled like cinnamon and sleep, like the home I never gave him. There were pictures on the wall I'd never seen. A birthday card taped to the fridge. His name on it. My name nowhere. She pointed to the door at the end of the hall. "He's in there." I stood outside it for a second. Listened. Silence. Then I knocked once. The door opened a crack. And there he was. 15. Taller than I remembered. Shoulders broader. Hair longer. He had circles under his eyes and his hoodie looked slept in. But it wasn't the clothes or the weight loss that hit me. It was his eyes. He looked right at me, not past me, not through me at me. And they were full of something I hadn't seen since he was 9 years old, pain mixed with hope. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. Then he stepped back. That was it. No hug. No words. Just that one small gesture. He let me in. And God, it broke me. I sat on the edge of his bed. He sat on the floor. We didn't look at each other right away. I noticed a stack of notebooks beside his desk, half hidden. Torn pages. Scribbled lyrics. Drawings of people falling. Drowning. Burning. Liz told me, I finally said. He didn't move. I should have been there. I wasn't. I know that. Still nothing. I kept talking. You probably think I don't care. That I walked out. That you didn't matter. Now he looked at me. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. I didn't know how to be anything but tired, I said. I stopped showing up for everyone, not just you. I was alive, but not really. You have every right to be angry. His jaw clenched. I don't want to be angry, he said quietly. I just don't want to feel like I'm nothing. That hit me like a hammer to the chest. You're not nothing, I said. You're the only thing that ever felt real. He looked down. I reached out slow, like approaching a wounded animal, and put my hand on his shoulder. He let it stay. And that was the first time I cried in front of my son. No words. No promises. Just a crack in the wall we both built. And for the first time in years, I believed something might come through it. I stayed on the couch that first night. Didn't sleep. Just lay there in the dark, the smell of old throw pillows and burnt toast clinging to everything. Liz had gone to bed without a word. I didn't blame her. I'd walked out of this house 2 years ago like it was a room I could just shut the door on. Turns out the room kept breathing without me. At 6:12 a.m. I heard Nate's door creak open. Then the sound of cereal being poured. I didn't move. Didn't want to crowd the moment. But a few minutes later, he walked into the living room holding 2 mugs. Coffee's not great, he said. Mom makes it like motor oil. I took the cup. Burned my tongue on the first sip. Didn't care. You always up this early? I asked. He shrugged. Can't sleep much. I wanted to ask 100 things. About school. The fight. The notebooks. But I didn't. I just sat next to him, drinking awful coffee, watching the sun rise through blinds that didn't quite close all the way. And for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like permission. After he left for school, Liz and I finally spoke. She stood at the sink, arms crossed, not looking at me. You think one night fixes it? She said. No. You think showing up now undoes 2 years of damage? No. Then why are you here? I set the mug down hard. Because he still looks at me like I matter. And I didn't expect that. I didn't deserve that. But if he's got even an ounce of space left for me, I'm gonna fill it. She stared at me. Long and hard. Then, you want in? Be in. But this isn't some redemption movie, Marty. This is real. You can't disappear the second it gets hard. That was the thing. I'd always been great at the return. The apology. The grand gesture. But staying? That's where I failed every time. When the routine turned boring again. When my excuses came knocking. But this time, I was different. Or at least, I was desperate enough to become someone who could be. I rented a place 10 minutes from the school. 2-bedroom, outdated carpet, smelled like paint. Didn't matter. I bought a mattress, a desk, a used coffee maker. I told my boss I'd be working remote. Indefinitely. I told Liz I wanted Nate 2 nights a week. She said no. I asked for 1. She said maybe. I called Nate that night. Want to come hang at my place? Pizza and a movie. Silence. Then, only if I picked the movie. Deal. He came over that Friday. Brought a backpack and 3 DVDs. We didn't talk much. Just watched Iron Man and ate greasy pepperoni. But he laughed at one point. Like really laughed. And I held on to that laugh like it was oxygen. I didn't try to fix him that night. Didn't bring up the darkness or the drawings or the things Liz told me. I just let him exist. Let him feel normal. The next morning, he was still there. Still sleeping on the couch when I woke up. I made pancakes. Burned the first batch. Got it right the second. He ate 3. No ceremony. No breakthrough. Just a tired kid and a father who finally showed up before it was too late. And maybe that's the lesson nobody teaches you. Love isn't the apology. It's the consistency. It was the 3rd Friday in a row Nate stayed over. He had a drawer now, nothing dramatic, just some socks, deodorant, 2 t-shirts. But for a 15-year-old kid who hadn't spoken to me for almost a year, a drawer was a lighthouse. A signal that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't drifting anymore. We were sitting on the balcony of my apartment. It overlooked a parking lot and a dumpster, but that night the sunset made everything look softer than it deserved. He had his hood up, headphones hanging around his neck. I had 2 beers, 1 for me, 1 unopened. Just a quiet peace between us. Then he said, "Why'd you leave?" I knew that question would come eventually. I just didn't think it'd land like a punch in the gut. Could have lied. I could have dressed it up. Stress. Burnout, work pressure, marital strain, all the buzzwords you use when you're trying to make selfish sound responsible. But he didn't need a clean version. He needed the truth. So I gave it to him. I got scared, I said, of being a failure, of not knowing how to be a husband, a father, a man who didn't disappoint everyone around him. He looked at me, eyes narrowed. So you ran? Yeah, I said. I did. He didn't say anything for a minute. You always look tired, he finally muttered. I said, but not from work. From pretending I was okay. That sat between us like fog. He shifted in his chair. You know what sucked? He asked. It wasn't just that you left. It was that you stayed gone. Like, I waited. I made excuses for you. Told people, he's just figuring stuff out. And then one day, I stopped making them. That cracked something open in me. Because I remembered that feeling. I remembered being his age and waiting for my own father to pick me up from Little League. Sitting on a bench until the parking lot went dark. Making up reasons for a man who'd already made his choice. I swore I'd never be that guy. And then I became him. I'm sorry, I said, choking the words out. I didn't know how to come back. Why now? He asked. That was the hardest part. Because I didn't have a clean answer. No tragedy. No rock bottom. Just one ordinary Tuesday night, staring at my own reflection in the microwave door, realizing I didn't recognize the man staring back. So I told him the truth. Because when your mom showed up and told me what was going on, that you were hurting, that you'd written things down that scared her, it scared me too. And for the first time in years, I felt something. Like maybe it wasn't too late. He looked down, picked at the label on his Gatorade bottle. Then he asked, You ever feel like you broke something that can't be fixed? I nodded. Yeah, every day. He didn't say anything for a while after that. But when I got up to go inside, he followed. Didn't speak, didn't ask for anything. Just walked beside me. And in that moment, I knew something important. He didn't need me to be perfect. He just needed me to stay. I stood in front of the mirror that Saturday morning, holding a razor in my hand and staring at a face I barely recognized. The beard was patchy. The lines under my eyes were deeper than I remembered. A scar near my left temple, from when I fell off the garage roof in '89, looked sharper now. My hands trembled, just a little, the way they always did when I was about to do something I'd been avoiding for years. Behind me, in the other room, Nate was asleep on the couch, mouth open, one sock off, Xbox controller resting on his chest. The kid was finally comfortable, finally still. And me? I felt like I was about to crack wide open. I hadn't shaved properly in months, maybe years. Not because I liked the beard, but because it hid things. My face, my age, my exhaustion. It was a shield. But that morning something shifted, something settled. I was tired of hiding from my own reflection, so I shaved. Slow, deliberate, like I was peeling off armor. Every stroke took years off my face and dropped them into the sink like ash. And when it was done, when the steam faded and I looked up at the man staring back, I saw someone I hadn't seen in a long, long time. Not the man I used to be, but the one I could be. Later that day, I went through an old cardboard box I'd shoved in the back of the closet after the divorce. Inside, things I'd buried because I couldn't face them. Photos of me and Nate at the beach. A Father's Day card he made in 3rd grade. You're the best dad 'cause you always fix my bike. Even when it's just the chain LOL. Ticket stubs. Report cards. Drawings with misspelled words and superheroes with my face. Every piece of paper was a reminder of the man I stopped being. I could feel the tears welling up before I let them fall. I wasn't grieving my past. I was grieving the version of myself I abandoned. And that day I made a decision. No more hiding. No more showing up halfway. That night after Nate went to bed, I sat down with Liz at the kitchen table. I hadn't been back inside her house since the night she showed up at my door. Felt fragile. Like sitting inside a glass memory. I want to be in his life, I told her. For real. Not just pizza nights and weekends. I want to help. I want to show up to parent-teacher conferences. I want to be the one who grounds him when he messes up and the one who cheers him on when he doesn't. She sipped her tea. You always had the words, Marty, she said. But you never followed through. I know, I said. But I'm not trying to be who I was. I'm just trying to be here now. She looked at me for a long time. Then she said something I wasn't ready for. He said he forgives you. I blinked. What? He told me. After the first night at your place. Said you looked scared. Said it made him feel better that you were scared, too. I nodded, but my throat was too tight to speak. Then she added. But forgiveness isn't the end. It's the beginning. You still have to earn him. I know. She looked away out the window, then back at me. Okay. We'll take it slow. That was it. Not a grand gesture. Not some emotional crescendo. Just a sentence. Quiet. Solid. Like a bridge slowly rebuilding, one beam at a time. And that night, lying on my cheap mattress in my half-furnished apartment, I finally said it out loud to myself, to the ceiling, to no one. I want to live again. Not just breathe. Not just exist. Live. They say life tests you the moment you decide to change. For me, it came on a Wednesday. One of those gray, aching days where everything feels a little heavier. It started with a call from school. I was at my desk, buried in reports I didn't care about, pretending like the spreadsheet in front of me was more important than the silence in my apartment. Principal's voice. Serious. Nate was caught with a vape pen. In class. My stomach dropped. I thanked her, hung up, sat there staring at my screen like it owed me answers. And all I could think was he was doing so well. The thing about rebuilding a relationship is you start to believe in momentum. A few laughs. A shared dinner. A trust forming. You convince yourself that forward is the only direction left. But healing isn't a straight line. It loops. It dips. It drags you backward just to see if you'll still keep walking. When I picked him up that afternoon, he wouldn't look at me. Just climbed into the car, arms folded, hoodie up. I didn't yell. God, I wanted to. But not out of anger, out of fear. That this was the start of the unraveling. That I'd get one summer, a few decent weekends, and then he'd slip away again. Not because he hated me, but because he didn't believe I was strong enough to hold onto him. So instead, I just said, talk to me. Nothing. I pulled into a parking lot, empty strip mall, one broken neon sign blinking open over a dusty thrift store. We sat there, engine humming, sun bleeding down over the dashboard. Finally, he spoke. I didn't even smoke it. I just had it. Why? He shrugged. Could I hang with gave it to me? Said it helps with the noise. I don't know. I looked at him, really looked. Eyes rimmed red. Hands twitchy. The same posture I used to have at his age when my dad wouldn't come home for 3 nights and I'd pretend I didn't care. There's a lot going on in here, I said, tapping my chest. Feels like it's never gonna slow down. Right? He nodded barely. And sometimes the wrong thing feels like the only thing that does slow it down. He stared straight ahead. I'm not mad, I said. I'm not disappointed. I just want you to know if something's screaming inside you, you don't have to fight it alone. His lip quivered. Just a little. And then he whispered, I don't want to be like you were. That one cut deep. But he didn't say it to hurt me. He said it because he'd seen me broken. And he was trying to make sure he wouldn't become the ghost I used to be. I reached across and squeezed his shoulder. Then don't run like I did. Stand still. Let me stand with you. He finally looked at me. Eyes glassy. Voice low. Okay. That night I stayed at Liz's place. All of us in the same space, quiet, awkward, but real. We made frozen pizza. Nate actually told her about the incident. Owned up to it. No spin. Progress. Later, after he went to bed, Liz looked at me from across the kitchen table. I didn't think you'd handle it like that. Like what? Like a father. I didn't have a reply. I just sat there, holding that sentence like a fragile, precious thing. Because for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a guest in my own story. I felt like I belonged. It didn't come with fireworks. No grand speech. No perfect scene with a tear-streaked hug and a slow camera pan to the sunset. It came on a Thursday. Just me and Nate, standing in the kitchen of my little apartment, 2 plates, 2 forks, leftover spaghetti, and a Bluetooth speaker playing an old Springsteen track we both half-liked but never admitted to. He was setting the table. I was stirring the sauce. Something so ordinary, so forgettable, it could have slipped through the cracks of any week. But I'll never forget it. Because somewhere between him asking if we had Parmesan and me answering, probably not, but shake the green bottle and pretend, he laughed. A full, unguarded teenage boy laugh. Head tilted back. Eyes wrinkling. Not a forced one. Not a thanks for trying, Dad laugh. A real one. I froze. Spoon still in the pot. Watching him. That sound, it cracked something open inside me that I didn't even know was still locked up. Not pain. Not regret. Something else. Hope. He didn't notice. Just kept laughing. Called me a spaghetti amateur and dumped half the cheese onto his plate. And I realized something I'd never said out loud before. This is it. This is the win. Not the big comeback. Not redemption. Not undoing the past. This. A kid laughing in your kitchen because he finally feels safe enough to. After dinner, we sat on the couch, full and tired. He grabbed the remote, scrolled through movie options. Then he paused. You remember that old animated Batman movie? He asked. The one we used to watch when I was little? Mask of the Phantasm, I said immediately. You made me rewind the Joker scene like 20 times. He smirked. Yeah, that one. I've still got it, I said. Somewhere in a box. We didn't even need to watch it. Just the fact that we both remembered that he wanted to remember, that was the gift. The next morning, he left for school with his hoodie half-zipped, his backpack slung low. At the door, he turned and said, Hey, I like hanging out here. Simple. Uneventful. But my chest swelled like I just won a war I didn't even know I was still fighting. After he left, I sat with my coffee and looked out at the street. The wind moved through the trees like it always did. The world was the same. But I wasn't. For so long, I thought change had to be dramatic. That transformation came with a bang, not a whisper. I thought I had to reinvent everything, become a new man, erase the wreckage. But real change? It's in showing up. Again. And again. And again. Even when it's boring. Even when no one claps. Even when it feels like no one notices but you. That's the work. That's the miracle. I still make mistakes. Still have moments where the old version of me creeps in, tired, impatient, selfish. But now I know better. And when you know better, you do better. Or at least, you try. And Nate? He's not a kid anymore. He's growing. Fast. Some days he shuts down again. But now I know how to sit in the silence with him, not trying to fix, just being there. That's the job. That's fatherhood. You don't save the day. You stay for it.